Good morning, everyone. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Philip Ding toku ingoa. No mai hui kai aku rika. No mai mana whenua. No mai koramatua. No mai kai whakahaere matua. No mai kunihera. No mai kai mahi. Welcome everyone. I'm Philip Dean. I'm the chairperson of our Economic Development Group. Welcome to everyone here today. I acknowledge mana whenua, Megan. Welcome. Sam. Steve, welcome to the table as the acting chief executive. Welcome councillors, and then welcome everyone else who's actually the staff. And thank you in advance for the hard work which we're about to do today. As I have at the beginning of all these meetings, I've refreshed my memory earlier today about our whakatauki, kai aku rika. It is in our hands. You know, this is the place where guidance and governance and decisions are formed, where roadmaps are set, and paths and strategies and thinking is seeded. So I'm not going to go any further. That's a welcome. We'll start with our opening karakia. So join me, please. Whakatakatahau ki te uru, whakatakatahau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. He aki ana ti atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, ti he Māori ora. We've got a few things today that we're going to be talking about in PX and a few things that we'll be referring to in public, which will then be obviously expanded out in PX. I acknowledge Councillor Mugford being here today. Thank you, not part of the committee, but thank you for being here today, and any other councillors here. So we've got the minutes of, any apologies. I've got an apology from Shane rather. Sam is here. From Shane, who's late, I think. He is going to be online, but he's not online yet. So can I have someone to move that as, thank you. It's my second. Grant. So Sam and Grant. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. We have the minutes of the previous meeting here in front of us. Any conversation on that?
Moved subject to just a couple of spelling amendments right at the end of the minutes. The decision tress rather than trees a couple of times. So just amend the spelling.
Thank you, Grant. You know, it's going to have a seconder for that. Thank you, Sam. With those amendments, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. We have here, we have our terms of reference there just for our information. I'm not going to go over those for too much. I'll give a quick, the next thing, I'm jumping a bit of the agenda. I don't have a paper agenda in front of me, so I apologise for that. I do have a paper agenda in front of me. Any identifications of extraordinary business this morning? Okay, I'm going to got a verbal report to give. As I said, my verbal report's going to point to some things that we are talking about later on in PX. We're going to be talking today. We're going to get some feedback from our mayor about the freight hub. We're going to hear today a bit more about Enterprise Dunedin and that. There is a question that was raised at our last council meeting by Councillor Glidden around the dark sky accreditation and also around some more padding around the steering group. So I know we've built that into our agenda for today, because they're not only were they a good question by Councillor Glidden, but they're also a good thing for us to be talking about. I am also going to want to set a regime as we go forward over the next few months. A regime that sets out what is important and a sort of a roadmap for the future of kai aku rika. This roadmap, not necessarily in decisions and investment, but a roadmap as a path and a direction. We don't have a lot of time in terms of with a looming election. So the path we need to set is a path which sets the direction. So I'm going to talk today a bit about some timeframes. We're lucky that we have our Waikirikiri Katoa has painted us a really good direction, and Kakurika provides us with the ability to create some governance and create some how we create an intergenerational investment fund. And I think that that's the point that we're at, is it's starting to talk in broad concepts about this as opposed to decision-making trees. So that's my verbal report. I'll like to move that we receive my verbal report, which I'll give you a written copy of later on. Can I have a second for my report, please? Thank you, Grant. Any questions? All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll move on to the report from you. Over to you.
Kia ora koutou, Claire Quirk here. It's my pleasure to talk about our work program, which is Appendix A, and it's focused on Kayakarika Economic Development Strategy, outlining our key reporting and stakeholder engagement activities for the next couple of years. It's ensuring that we have continued progress on the economic development initiatives, and the program remains flexible to accommodate emerging opportunities and additional items added at the discretion of the Chair of the Economic Development Subcommittee or upon subcommittee request. If urgent matters arise between meetings, such as the time-sensitive opportunities, the Chair will initiate contact with the subcommittee members in line with the terms of reference. Any opportunities requiring council resources will be discussed with the Chair, who will seek input from other committee members as needed. In terms of council-led projects, the subcommittee will get detailed reports every 3 months on projects run by council. Externally led projects, the projects run by other organisations and entities will be shared for general information only, and externally led projects with council funding. If the council provides money to an externally led project, the subcommittee will be provided with a report on how that money has been spent and associated deliverables. External parties invited to provide an update may include cross-sector steering group members, signatories of the strategy such as Cord, Kiwi Rail, Lincoln University or Canterbury or Business Canterbury, Te Tamutu, Runanga and Orion, or other contributors to economic development and so on. Written cross-sector steering group updates will be provided twice a year, with the chair of the steering group invited to present annually. Informal networking opportunities with the group will be scheduled for June and December. Meetings are aligned with the investment strategy work program, which includes one additional meeting in May. Are there any questions about that?
Are there any questions from anyone about that report or the field presentations? Sam?
Yeah, thank you for that. And just wondering about the people who will be engaged in that steering group early. The Mayoral Forum has currently been talking about the regional deal work and what might need to be pulled together, and just making sure that Ngāi Herere is included. You mentioned Taumotu, but regardless of involvement to date in the development of the strategy, a continued conversation with them about whether or not they would like to be a part of that steering group, I think it's important.
We met, thank you very much, we met with Mike Davidson on Friday, and he's very keen to be involved.
Okay, thank you.
Are you able to elaborate any more, Sam? So this is for you, Sam. You mentioned about the Mayoral Forum and the deals. Are you able to elaborate anything more on that for us here, or is that something that we can talk about in another forum? Yep, fine. Yep, I'll make a note. Yep. Sorry, any other questions for... Lovely. Was there anything else that you were going to add?
Presentation.
Okay. All right, so before we hear an update on the identity project, I'll just briefly cover off the other components of the report. So in terms of the Dark Sky Accreditation Project, a Lincoln University master's student has completed initial research, which you'll see outlined in the report. We've also met with the Glenorchy Dark Skies rep and Kiwi Rail to shape a joint tourism plan as part of the MOU that's in place. And next steps include onboarding a technical expert to engage with stakeholders and develop a roadmap with costs, timelines and application steps. And that expert will present findings and next steps at an upcoming meeting. For the cross-sector steering group, Johnny O'Donnell, who supported the development of Kaiakurika, is working with council staff to establish the group. This includes designing a diverse and representative group with clearly defined roles and terms of reference and developing long-term engagement strategies. Johnny and council staff will meet with each of the strategy signatories and project partners involved in years 1 to 2 of the action plan, and a more detailed update on this work will be provided in July. You will also receive you'll also be invited to an informal hui with the steering group before the end of June, which is an opportunity to meet the group and support its early development. So I'd now like to welcome up Natalie and Laura to provide a briefing on the Identity Project, and I'll just ask them to introduce themselves while we get it set up.
Just before we go,
Yep,
Shay,
yep, sorry, of course, yep.
So just before we move on, and thank you, sorry to interrupt. There's a couple of, if there are any questions around the steering group or the Dark Skies,
Yep.
Nicole.
It's good to see the progress coming on in the Dark Skies. I see that Waimakariri District Council has Dark Sky accreditation, and have we been speaking to them? Because wasn't clear on that.
Yes, we've been speaking with Miles and the team there. Yes, definitely. It's part of the bigger picture of thinking about the opportunities for people to travel through the South Island and see the dark sky, and, you know, with all of us talking together and being part of a whole picture.
So what difference do we get from speaking to like different perspectives by talking to Glenorchy? Because that's quite a different from here as well. Yeah.
We are talking to a variety of different people about their experience, because they are all different, and potentially our application might be more similar to Glenorchy than it is to Waimakariri.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Grant.
I guess I query, why do we continue to need outside consultants such as Johnny to run these projects? It appears to me we've got enough capacity inside our own organisation to do this, and I suppose I'm challenging you to spend less and use your own resources rather than to keep re-employing people from outside to deliver these things. I don't think we need to keep doing that. I think we've got to be careful with ratepayers' money, and I think now's an opportunity to consider that. Steve, you like to make a comment on that?
Between Denise and I think we understand that directive, councillor, and certainly our work programs do balance that. I think where we've got expertise in-house, we use our in-house staff, but on certain areas where the expertise is probably best done elsewhere or in a contingent basis, I think we are balancing that cost to ratepayers all the time.
And I'd just add to that there is no expectation that there will be a continued role for various outside experts. It's just to establish some of the basics, and then it will be managed in-house. That is the expectation.
And I just wanted to add that we are just using him because of his experience with the setup stage, so it is absolutely for establishment only.
I guess the challenge I'm putting back to you is when you read the job description, it's not terribly taxing. You're corralling a group and setting up a group. It just doesn't seem we need to get outside expertise to do that. And that's my challenge to you. There's nothing there which is extremely complicated or needing a specialist outside help.
Thank you, Grant, for that. Any other questions around that? I have a question around the steering group, but we'll stay on the Dark Skies for now. Anything else on Dark Skies? Anything on the steering group? Right. Well, I'll raise my questions. The first question is I just wanted to understand a smidgen more about it. Is it going to be a dynamic group? Are we going to be moving people on and off it because that was something that we talked about initially. I'm just wondering where we're sitting with that. The second part of the question is, what how do you see the connection between the committee here and the steering group? In fact, ultimately, does someone from the committee here or council at the governance level, like our mayor, have presence at that on that steering group, and what are your thoughts around that?
So the steering group will be an integral part of reporting back to this committee, and there will be opportunities for them to, have a update formally twice a year with the chair of the steering group, and they'll be invited to present annually. But there'll also be those informal networking opportunities in June and December. But the idea is that there's definitely a strong connection between the group and the committee.
Can I just add to that? My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there is going to be an iterative process. Depending on the priorities in any given period of time, there will be representatives from different external sources who are leading various projects deemed to be the priority.
Yep.
The second bit would be whether or not there's an opportunity for some representation on that committee, and I think that's worth considering as you start to develop this up.
Yeah, and if I could just note as well, the council is one player in the economy, and a lot of the projects that might be discussed at that group may not have any council involvement, and it might just be something that council can be aware of. So it's just important to note that distinction as well.
Yeah, I guess my question was more around, I guess that's understood that there was council, but we could be there as a facilitator, as we've been through all this before. It's the getting and it's not only about council being involved as part of the steering group, it's the consideration whether the steering group becomes part of this group. We have the facility to have external people here, and would that be, I guess these are the things that as we go forward we can, we're going to keep thinking about, we're going to keep asking about, not because I'm challenging the questions, but I just want to make sure that we're keeping it live as a process. I like the fact that it's going to be dynamic. Just wanted to go again. So with that dynamic nature, does that mean that if we have a particular project, it may not be the same people at that group? Will there be a core? At this stage, do we know whether there'll be a core group with a certain number of people, or is it a bit early for that?
It's all part of the thinking of getting it established, and it may be a core group, or it may be more dynamic than that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any more questions on the stream? Megan.
You can go first, right?
But you were next. Okay.
Suzanne.
Sorry, my question was, and I wasn't going to ask it, but I think I will now in light of the discussion. What is the strategic relationship management framework, and how does that relate to the steering group and also to the strategy?
So part of the expertise that we have had from Johnny is about the strategic relationships framework. So that's to help us to work out how relationships get managed across the organisation and where the touch points are. So that is the thing that we really want to get right. And so that is what we know that he has experience with, and that he can help us with those sort of gateways into the organisation and how we manage. We don't have lots of people contacting people, and we are much more strategic about how we deal with strategic relationships.
So this is something for council as a whole. It's not related to the economic development work program. It's actually how council engages with strategic relationships.
Our focus is on the economic development relationships, but there will be spillover and there'll be opportunities for other parts of council to be involved, certainly.
Oh, okay, it's just when you said the entity, I thought you were meaning a council-wide project. So it's not a council-wide project. This is specifically and bespoke to identifying who are the relationship partners for the economic development Okay, and then and they will be different than the steering group, and they will own them. They may engage in other aspects of council. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I get my comments in kind of along the lines of what Shay raised, and thinking about what the connection is back to this committee and maybe your involvement in that, Phil, because there's going to be a lot of work that happens that we don't want to be a part of and shouldn't be a part of, and will only slow down if we get involved. But then there's lots of things where we have held together the partnership and managed to keep people on board, and because of our leadership in this, we've got to the point where we are with all the other partners. And so, yeah, wondering what your place as chair might fit into that group, so that there is a connection beyond staff involvement to the leadership work that's going to need to happen with the continuation of what council is doing, the messaging back that we're still involved, and then for the reporting back here and the consistency, I suppose, around where we've got to and what that next stage looks like.
Absolutely, we'll note that. Yep, there's definitely a strong connection, and there's nothing set in stone at the moment, so we're completely open to looking at ways of doing it. So yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. So I guess I'm not trying to say it's our committee. It's still, because it's the group needs to own it themselves. But what is our part in it? And to me, that might be Phil's participation or the chair's participation in that work.
Yeah, I guess that was the question that I was asking as well. Is it just about that? Let's just keep that. Make sure that we have got the connection. The best is to have the connection is to be that close together. Yeah.
Can I ask something else?
Yes, of course.
This is just on dark sky accreditation. I was in Castle Hill on Monday last week, and looking at the work that needs to happen post the fires over summer, and the communities come together, landowners, DOC, environmental organisations, Taumotu is there, thinking about what happens to that space, and dark sky was one of the things that came up. So just as you're working through, connection back to that community is going to be an important part, and there was a lot of people there excited about what the potential starts to look like. So encouragement in the work, but also probably the need. They were feeling like there was a bit of a vacuum of information. So just wondering about how we talk about what the process is going to be and how the public might become more aware of the timeframes that we're looking at. If it's not next meeting, it's the one after. That's 4 to 6 months away. It's not happening next week. All those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have spoken to Castle Hill Community Association. I know they're very interested in progress. So it's just a matter of looping in everyone at the right time. So I think we'll definitely provide an update next meeting. Thanks, Sam.
One of the things about, we're publicly talking about this, and hopefully if the media picks up on some of this stuff, that could be helpful as well. Yep. Okay, is there any more questions around this? The only other thing that was in the report was that there was a recommendation, I guess, that about the meeting frequency moving from monthly to, it's in the recommendation. So the recommendation is that we move to quarterly. So I wanted to, I guess before we moved into that, I just wanted to throw that, see if there's any comments on that. I'm supporting it, mainly because I think that we have a very good relationship at the moment with our weekly meetings, which will continue. If there's anything that comes up in the out of cycle times, then we're going to be knowing about it. And and there have been I'll leave it there. Are there any comments on that? Grant.
Maybe I heard your comment wrong, but it did concern me when you said we're having very good weekly meetings, which suggests you're running the business outside this committee.
Okay. So
that didn't sound good to me. I hope I misunderstood.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely not.
Because it gave the impression we don't need to have meetings because I'm doing it on my weekly meetings.
It's okay. That's a good point. Thank you for I'll give me an opportunity to clarify that. That's definitely not the case. Anything that we talk about in those weekly meetings is more clarifying around agendas, clarifying around things that we've already discussed here, honing it so that it comes back to the script. When I say honing, it's not in terms of shaving or adding. It is merely in terms of like, for example, today we've talked about the things that Councillor Glidden raised, and the reason, and I made sure that they came on here and that it was understood why they were coming on here. That's a good example.
I would support it if the work program you've developed suggests that we need quarterly meetings. Obviously, the work program will determine the frequency. So if you as the chair have developed a work program which suggests to us that we only need quarterly meetings, I'd support that. But without knowing that, I don't know I'm taking your advice as the chair whether the work program supports monthly or quarterly meetings.
So I'm not entirely sure. Okay, thank you, Grant. Megan.
Look, I have a pretty good oversight of what's happening in the economic development work program because it's in there, right? We've actually got the table. We know what papers are coming when, and so I know what to expect in April, and if we're going to meet in May, and then for the rest of the year. But when it comes to the investment and disinvestment work stream, there is no oversight of that I can see. And there's some outstanding actions that I don't know where they're landing and who's going to be picking them up. And one outstanding action was, how do we actually just get like a table of everything that we own in non-current assets? Like, what is all of our land ownership? What is all of our building ownership? So I'm comfortable with the Economic Development Subcommittee work program moving to quarterly, if that's all we're going to be doing with this. But I can't see the same for the investment and disinvestment work stream. And the other part on the economic development work program is like when these emerging opportunities arise, like how are we addressing them? Because I'm mindful also about how we are spending the budget and it's not approved by this committee.
If I can just respond to that, what's in front of you is around the work program and what economic development work projects are going to take place and the reporting cycle. So what is being presented in that regard is this is reporting for the economic development. You raise some very relevant points around the investment, and we can perhaps talk about that when we get the report later in this meeting around the investment work program, because I understand there's been some thinking around that as well. So that is not that's not the same as the economic development work program. This is, as I understand it, it's specifically related to the periods of time we will be presenting and be in a position to present around the economic development program. There will be an opportunity to have that direct conversation around investment throughout the meeting. And I think in the executive director report, my understanding is there is an opportunity for some discussion around what does happen, and it picks up on what Councillor Miller's saying, and the issue that you're raising is opportunities that present or emerging things that come up in between this quarterly cycle that we don't know about now. And my understanding is there's an opportunity to discuss what that process should be later in the meeting. But at this stage, we don't see the value in monthly reporting because we are going to have more meaningful updates to be able to provide to you if we do it in this proposed cycle.
Yep, no, I get it now. I think I had misunderstood the comments to say that the subcommittee is going to meet quarterly, and that's not what you're saying. You're saying the subcommittee will continue to meet monthly, as it always does, but the work program updates on economic development will be quarterly.
Potentially, it may be decided that that's all the only updates you're going to get are economic development, and so it is quarterly.
Oh, right, okay,
Yeah.
so if the investment and disinvestment work program was no longer part of this committee.
Or they could. My understanding is some of that initial conversation, which we'll go into when Rebecca gets an opportunity to go through her report. My understanding is that Rebecca sees some alignment with the quarterly reporting, but also has potentially got another meeting that she wants to introduce specifically on the topic of investment. So another meeting in addition to the quarterlies.
Okay, so we really can't make a decision on meeting schedules until later.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, back to you, Shay. You're about to introduce.
Yes, thank you. All right, so now I'd like to welcome up Natalie and Laura to provide a briefing on the Identity Project, and we'll ask them to introduce themselves to you all just while we get set up.
Morena, I'm Natalie Cahill, the Marketing Manager here at Selwyn District Council. And to help shape this piece of work, we've worked with Studio C to assist with our initial thinking and scoping of this project. This will result in a brief that we'll take to market in the coming weeks to look for a partner to help bring this brand identity to life. So I'll just pass to Laura to introduce herself.
Morena koutou, thank you for having us. My name's Laura Sessions. I'm the General Manager of Studio C, and we're a small agency that specialises in co-design, branding, community engagement, creative storytelling, and placemaking. And my own expertise is in communications and storytelling. And prior to coming to Studio C, I worked in the economic development team at Hutt City Council, so I do have some understanding of your work. Studio C's worked with a number of councils throughout New Zealand to help them communicate and engage with their communities better. And most recently, we've been working with you to help you develop your My Future Selwyn area plan, early engagement. And I'd also just like to introduce my colleague, Celeste Skatchell, who's the founder of Studio C, and she has particular expertise in branding and placemaking.
All right, so I just thought I'd provide a little bit of context to this project. So the Identity Project is a catalyst project under the Building Our Brand and Telling Our Story priority. It responds to what we heard during engagement with over 250 leaders, that Selwyn lacks a clear regional identity. People struggle to describe what makes Selwyn unique or why they live and work here. And businesses said they need a stronger story to attract investment, and that population growth alone isn't enough. So this is not just a marketing project, it's also a key enabler to many of the other projects in our strategy. Every initiative in Kaiāku Rika needs strong communications, and this brand will provide the framework for consistent storytelling. So I'll just hand back to you to talk us through it.
So what strong place brands have in common is a clear understanding of their strengths, their weaknesses, whether it's in tourism, destination development, or economic growth. They ask themselves 3 questions. How do we attract more visitors? How do we attract great talent to live and work here? And how do we get people to choose this place to invest in? Different audiences look for different things, but often the same factors come up again and again. Livability, vibrancy, economic prosperity, access to education, good infrastructure, walkability or bikeability, airport connectivity, and things like local sports teams and family-friendly events. What makes place attractive to a family also appeals to a business owner or investor. These things overlap and they shape how place is perceived. This project is about creating a plan and a holistic model to help understand Selwyn's place attractiveness and positioning our identity in a way that's authentic, compelling, and distinct from other places. It's about building a clear, shared story for Selwyn, one that reflects who we are, helps us stand out, and positions our district as a great place to visit, live, work, and invest. It will embrace the cultural narratives that have long been the undercurrent of our regional story, but it is not a rebranding of council services or operations, but rather a repositioning to create a compelling image of our region through narratives that talk to livability, prosperity, and lovability. Where livability is about the practical quality of life, lovability is the emotional connection, the charm, the uniqueness, the sense of belonging that makes people fall in love with the place. It's what makes people say, I could see myself here. So thinking big picture, this is a timely reminder that a brand identity is not the same as a visual identity. A place brand is more than a logo. It's a shared strategic platform that helps define how we talk about Selwyn. Brand identity is our story, our core values, our unique personality or our character, and the emotional connection people feel with this place. It's not just about how we look, but who we are and our ambitions. A visual identity is how Selwyn presents itself to the outside world. It's the look and the feel.
So what do we mean by place-based branding, and how is that different to destination branding? You're probably more familiar with destination branding, as it's a more traditional approach to marketing a place specifically targeting tourists. So it will generally highlight attractions, activities, and experiences that make tourists want to visit a place. And destination marketing is generally sort of more of a short to medium term approach that tries to attract people to visit a place now, as opposed to developing a longer term, more strategic approach to economic development. So an example is the 100% Pure New Zealand brand and the Everyone Must Go campaign that sort of sits alongside that. So in contrast, place-based branding moves away from just attracting tourists to a place towards asking, why should people live and work here? It focuses on a location's overall identity and character in order to attract various economic activities, not just tourism, to foster a strong sense of community and to improve the location's reputation as a great place to live, work, and invest. Importantly, place branding is a unifying cultural expression that locals believe and feel. It's a source of local confidence, and it's a story that inspires action. So this is a quote from Todd Babiak, who used to be the CEO of Brand Tasmania, and he's a leading global expert on place-based branding. And he says, stories drive economies, feelings drive economies. And I think what he's getting at here is that people don't always make rational decisions. We often make decisions based on our feelings and based on our perceptions of a place. And that's why place-based branding relies so heavily on storytelling to inspire people into action. So one study found that perception influences about 86% of people's willingness to visit a place, and equally, it has a very strong influence on people's decisions about where they want to live, work, and invest. So what can you hope a place brand might achieve for Selwyn? The first thing is that it creates a shared vision that everyone can get behind. And it will also resonate outside of the region. So it will showcase innovation and really get Selwyn noticed for all of the right reasons. It will inspire action within the region, encouraging locals to buy homes and set up businesses, as well as attracting new residents to the region, driving investment and new business opportunities. It will resonate amongst the people living and working in the region to instill some community pride. And it has impact externally, strengthening collaboration and remaining independent of political interference. And we know that place branding can do all of these things because it's been used by cities around the world for over 2 decades, and it's really considered sort of the new industry standard. In your papers, we've given you a list of different case studies of cities around the world who have successfully used place branding, so please have a look at that. But for now, I just wanted to highlight 2 examples that are particularly relevant to Selwyn. So the first example is Dunedin, who have a similar model to Selwyn with a distinct council brand that's separate but functions very well with their Enterprise Dunedin place brand. And this slide shows the output from that place brand, which is they brought to life through their website, creating navigation that's segmented by user purpose. So you can see they have different sections for live, meet, screen, study, and business, which corresponds to their different audience segments and the stories that they want to tell each of those groups. And the other thing that we wanted to highlight about Dunedin is their great campaigning, which fits with their place branding. So the Dunedin Works Better is a tongue-in-cheek campaign that's targeted professionals who are sick of big city living and offering a higher quality of life in the South. The campaign aims to reframe perceptions of Dunedin from a sleepy farm town into a hub for entrepreneurs and innovation. It uses clever taglines like 2 out of 3 people surveyed want to move to Dunedin. The other person was already living there. And the other thing that they did really well was targeted placement of ads on bus backs and digital billboards in places like the Embassy Theatre in urban locations to reach their intended audience. And the second case study I just wanted to mention was Tasmania, who have developed a place brand, The Quiet Pursuit of the Extraordinary. And what I love about this example is the process that they went through to arrive at this brand. They conducted interviews with a number of different people within Tasmania and outside, and they asked people the question, what feels like it could only happen here in Tasmania? And what came through is that outside of the region, there's a negative perception of Tasmania, that it's a bit maybe backward, a bit remote, very isolated. But locals said that the positive side of that is that they've had to work a lot harder and be more creative to produce products and services that are truly extraordinary. So the brand's been very successful because really it's unapologetic about the local identity and their outsider role. It appears a little bit quirky and adventurous, but it's also very down to earth and hands-on and tells stories about innovation without being too shiny or slick. A key takeaway from the Tasmania example is also how important consistency is. So their brand flows through to all of their campaigns, including their talent attraction campaigns. This showcases a campaign that they titled Ambitious Introverts Who Love Nature. So they were wanting to target ambitious professionals who were looking for great careers, but they also really wanted a great lifestyle and community. So their messaging reflects this by telling potential talent, being a healthcare worker is among the most meaningful careers in the world. We invite you to do it in a meaningful place. And as well as their campaigns, Tasmania's brand flows through to what they call projects, which are almost like sub-brands. So they've called them Trojan horses because they basically enable lots of different people to get involved with the brand in subtle ways. And an example of one of these projects is Little Tasmanian, which is a children's book, which they give to all new parents in Tasmania, and it helps people connect to their place from birth. So it's interesting to think about how Selwyn might take a similar approach using your current sub-brands like Taste Selwyn, Ski Selwyn, and Meet Us in the Country as strategic tools for storytelling while ensuring that they're part of a consistent ecosystem.
Thank you. So what does a new place brand mean for Selwyn? All of the actions and work we do on a place brand will drive and deliver on our vision, spirit, and main outcomes of Waikiri Kiri Kitua Future Selwyn. The spirit of Selwyn is the heart of our place brand. The place brand will bring the spirit of Selwyn to life by showcasing local stories and values. We can't change the perception of place through marketing alone. In both economic and destination development, the strength of a place lies in its features. Whether that's affordable housing, livability, job opportunities, or vibrancy created from culture, hospitality, and recreation. It's not just about what you say, it's about what's on the ground that makes a place attractive. The town network in Future Selwyn already acts as a de facto place marketing framework. When we look through the lens of Future Selwyn and our urban form direction, a strong place brand paired with good storytelling can help deliver thriving neighbourhoods and lift overall livability. A cohesive place brand has the power to drive both tourism and business investment, with quality of life playing a pivotal role in both. For economic development, the quality of life is now one of the top factors for businesses and workers choosing where to locate. And for tourism, those same attributes like lifestyle, culture, vibrancy, and experiences are what draws visitors in. The place brand becomes a bridge, telling the same story, but in ways that connect with different audiences. For example, great food, walkable towns, access to nature, and local events appeal to both visitors and potential residents, investors, or remote workers. It all connects. If all the factors are aligning when considering place, then messaging and narratives need to align as well. Destination development drives economic development, and economic development drives the visitor economy. So the takeaway here is that place branding has to break out of its silo. Tourism, talent attraction, and economic development are all parts of the same story, and when we align those messages, we can create something much more powerful. Selwyn from the Land is our current destination brand. This will be considered as part of the new identity. The brand resonated with people because of connection to place, recreation, adventuring, mountains to see, and our food province story. The land is our economic base, and we will continue to tell these stories of food production, eventing, operators, sustainability and innovation through the planned activity and campaigns. This is an important part of identity, but just not all of it. So how does a brand identity deliver on both destination and economic development? It starts by recognising the destination marketing and economic development are not separate, they're deeply intertwined and mutually reinforcing. It's the first step in building relationship with place. Today's visitor could be tomorrow's resident, worker or business owner. Likewise, investment decisions are often driven by business opportunities like infrastructure, workforce or sector strength. But whether or not someone chooses to invest often comes down to, is this a place people actually want to live?
So what do we know about Selwyn's identity and how a place brand might begin to bring this to life? I think the important thing here is that you're not starting from scratch. You have a huge amount of information and insights to begin building a place brand. Over the last 18 months, council's engaged and consulted with the community, and there's been a lot of invaluable feedback. In particular, during the early engagement for your area plans, your strategy team talked with hundreds of people about what they like, what they don't like, and what they want to see more of in their towns. You'll have a presentation, I believe, on this in May from the strategy team, and all of this information will be given to the agency who will be doing the brand work to inform their discovery phase. So just to emphasize that point, on the left-hand side here, you can see a list of all the various sources of information that will be given to the agency that's developing the new brand. And this just outlines the overall process that we would recommend a brand partner to work through. So moving from left to right, from the discovery phase through to branding, design, and activation, through to tracking the brand. And ultimately, the main outcomes of this work will be a first draft of the place brand in June and 2 to 3 campaigns that are pulsed throughout the next 12 to 18 months. So thanks so much for your time, and we're really happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. I've got some questions, but I'll pass to the floor first. Sam.
Yeah, thank you for the work. I think it's really important to not just consider that we're a popular place where people want to be moving to now, but think about how that becomes, well, if we want that to be part of our future, that we actually plan and have a strategy around how we're going to make sure that continues to happen, and not just think that the decisions we've already made will see us right into the future. Was recently just reminded of a couple of the global stories around Kodak and Nokia, and think where they were at the top of the game and everything seemed really good, but actually they weren't able to flex, and they didn't think about what might happen next. So I like the thinking about how we might do that. I want to acknowledge the work that's done, that's had Selwyn now put as a finalist at the Cannes Film Festival. It's a massive international win for us. I'm not sure that we've celebrated it enough as a council yet. And those sorts of opportunities draw not only New Zealand's minds to what is this place, Selwyn, why might I want to move to Ralston, Lincoln, Darfield, why might my business want to be there, what's the opportunity for people that I want to employ to want to live there. But it puts us on a global stage in a brand new way that I don't think quite happened before. And I was recently watching, it's called the Australian Open. I think it was just a documentary on how the Australian Open has put both Australia and Melbourne on the map, and that started because it was authentically Australian. And so trying to come up with something that's us, not trying to prove ourselves and not trying to be something else and not having to be in New York, but because we're Selwyn and selling our story, I think it's really important to this. For them, tennis and the way they got to be an open on the tennis circuit was because the only winners of the Davis Cup had been Australian, French, English, and American, and so Australia kind of was there. Their facilities were terrible, and they were an embarrassment, and were worried about losing the Australian Open. And in the 80s made some big decisions to shift and to invest, and now they have 1 billion people watching a global tournament over 2 weeks, and the return on that's massive for them as a city and as a country. So I'm kind of thinking about how we, we're not going to step straight to that level, but what is it that is us that as we grow we hold on to and is still us in our future, and which bits do we need to be flexible on? So I like the thinking, and I just want to thank you for bringing that to us. I don't quite know how the 3 stages are going to work, and some of this is going to require a lot of community involvement and hearing voices from across our business sector, and as well as those who are considering and maybe have chosen not to be here, because not everyone has come here, and some of this is going to require funding, and so how that fits in with council's decision making. Is this already funded? Is this an annual plan conversation for next year? Where does this fit in things? So, yeah, thank you there.
Thanks, Sam. Great points there. And we'll have a look at that Australian Open. Sounds very interesting. Just to your point around the budget, so yes, it has been allocated as part of Kaiaku Rika for the next 10 years in this LTP. So there is budget that was noted at a previous meeting, I think in February or March with you. That's to really establish this project and deliver a place-based brand. Every other project where there is marketing or communication requirement has been budgeted for, and this brand, it'll be elevated really through those projects.
Amplified and elevated, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Megan.
Yeah, look, I found it a little bit difficult to engage because the whole time I'm going, where is the money for this? Where is the set? Whose set it's going to be here? Where is it related to the strategy? And so there's no paper to support all of those things that run through my head going, I can't engage with this until I know that this is it. And it's not in the work program. So I'm left going, right, if this is going to be the brand and we've got the money to do it, all good and well, but I don't know how to engage in it from this governance perspective.
Thanks, Megan.
My response to that would just be, I'm surprised because it is part of the work program, and if it's not explicitly stated in there, then that's a mistake of us. But I do understand that in terms of the budget and the work program update that was presented last time, it was explicitly stated around that, and that in fact generated quite a bit of discussion. And it would be fair to say there was some conversation in those weekly updates with the chair about whether or not it was best presented as a standalone paper, or whether it's introduced in the first instance in this way. And this was the decision that was made. So that doesn't mean that there won't be that there shouldn't be a paper, and we're happy to do that if that's the view of this committee. But what we were trying to do was present to you something that we understood has already been clearly indicated. So I will just invite Shay or Claire to comment around why is it that if Megan's not seeing the destination brand project clearly stated as a work project within the work program that's been presented. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So I believe it's in the action plan that was presented in year 1. So it is, the wording's a little bit confusing. It is called an identity project. So it is within the strategy. It's in year 1 of the action plan and within the budgets that were put forward to this committee. But I hear you. When we talk about destination brand and place brand and identity, there's a mixture of words. So I hear that. But yeah, if it is the view of the committee to have a paper specifically on where this fits, more than happy to do that.
And it would be good if we get the consistent language in, because it's obviously confusing.
Yeah.
Grant, can you turn yourself?
You know, for every single committee and all council, the amount of work that we have to do as governors to find out where it's located, like, and we're told consistently, go back to June 2000 and blah, blah. And I think, well, that's good and well if this was my full-time job. But it's really hard to engage and be good governors when you have to do so much of the work yourself. And that comment's kind of across the board. And I love seeing an annual work plan because this is probably the only committee at the moment that's got such a clear annual work plan. But it is really difficult and hours that you take to try and figure out where it all fits and finding annual plans and annual reports and thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Grant.
Good morning. I'm really interested because, based in Wellington, that sort of perhaps a wee bit removed from us, have we got sufficient differentiation in Selwyn to differentiate ourselves from Canterbury or Christchurch? Or, it's a challenging ask, isn't it, when people are coming to that? The reality is most people just see us as part of Canterbury. Is that how do you feel about that?
I think absolutely you do. And I think that's the role of place branding. And it's much more difficult to do sometimes with destination branding because people arrive in Christchurch Airport, they come to Canterbury, they see it as perhaps a region. And I think what place branding can do for Selwyn as a region is really differentiate you from Christchurch. You have really unique attributes of your different townships, and it's retaining that unique character and that almost village, like it's a city of villages sort of with access to a big city. So I think that you'll see a lot of very unique attributes coming through, particularly with your area plan engagement. And it's about selecting what are the things that are really going to resonate for people locally, develop that sense of community pride that then will externally make people think, oh, this is a place where I would really love to live and work. Does that make sense?
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. I guess how do we mitigate risk? And I suppose it's very, very early days, but this sort of industry is littered with great success stories, but also great failures, where they've been released and the community's just gone, what? You spent that on that? And unless it's the challenge, I suppose. It's a challenge and a risk, isn't it? Is getting it right is so absolutely critical because, just Googling through some of the previous examples of things that have been released and just haven't gelled or haven't resonated with the community, and really they've been a spectacular waste of money, and that's a real risk. It's very early days, and I'm not saying it's justice will, but how do we mitigate that risk to us?
I think, and Natalie and Shay might have comments as well, but from my perspective, the biggest failures have generally been when there's been very poor community engagement. So, a very kind of centralized decision making around what makes a place unique instead of going out and actually asking people in the community what they feel. And then it becomes a surprise for people. They sort of say, oh, is that actually what is going to really resonate? And that's what I love about the Tasmania example, because they actually went out and talked to people and came up with something that was really different. And I think that's what you've done really well in Selwyn, is that you have done such intensive community engagement. You've really reached out to people, talked to people about what they like, and your data will emerge from that rather than you going out and telling people what you think should be the unique selling point. So I do think that that's set you up for success.
How do we manage the transition in your plan, the logical transition to probably Selwyn to Waikirikiri? Because you see Christchurch now with Otatahi, no one calls Lake Ellesmere anymore, do they? It's Te Wahora now. So there's been a transition probably, and it's evolving through the whole of New Zealand, where we're recognising our heritage and our past. Is that something you just put to the side, or is that something you're actively building into the program and going, actually the brand's likely to change over the next 10, 15 year period, where people are slowly going to stop saying Selwyn and start saying Waikirikiri, or Sam already does, don't you? Well, and so it's sort of how do you manage that?
Oh, sorry. I was going to just make a comment on that. Over the last 18 months of our engagement and consultation, it has been weaved in, and I think with Waikiri Kiri Ki to a future Samoan, and when we reference that and continually lean back onto that intergenerational framework, that language is becoming more, I think, familiar to the organisation. But I do think it will be a consideration to the partner that we work with how they actually straddle that and deliver that in, and possibly through more some campaigning work.
Yeah, I guess my take on that would be that brands are always dynamic and they're always going to change. So a brand is a lot more than a slogan. And so while you'll develop something now that really resonates for people, that does need to be flexible enough that it can change and adapt as the region changes and adapts. And so I think that is inherent in a good brand anyway, that it's flexible enough that it can do that while retaining the kind of spirit of the brand generally.
Grant.
If you have to explain the brand, it hasn't worked, has it, really? I mean, that's the things seem to be intuitive more than, if you have to, like Otatahi, the new branding, they had to explain how they came up with the O and the C, and everyone's going, oh, right, okay. It didn't work because you had to explain it.
All right, I've got a couple of comments, and I know Denise wants to add some as well. Obviously, the brand identity is something that I think is really important in terms of, we get this brand right, then people will want to visit here, live here, work here, and invest here, which is, of course, are all the key things. Yeah, we look at places where people want to do that around the world now, including Melbourne. Thanks, Sam. And there are reasons for that. But our local brand, Selwyn by the Land, our identity, we need to be paying more than just a cap tip to that. That is a brand that's been decided by the Selwyn District Council. So one of the things that if we are looking at our brand identity, then we're actually moving away from Selwyn by the Land. And Selwyn by the Land was about our rural identity. Now, while we have grown and we are seeing rapid change in here, and most of our change has been in our bigger towns, and I think your term, a city of towns, which is a great way of putting it, maybe moving us away from that. Part of the journey that we need to be taken on is around, are we happy to move away from the Selwyn by the Land? So, and so I guess there's a timeline, and I'm going to get to the money shortly. We need to know what the timeline is, and around this, we need to also think the impact of our built environment has on restricting anything we do around our identity brand. I think your words were culture, hospitality, and recreation. At the moment, I think culturally we're doing pretty well. We are rural towns. We've got the urban thing going for us. We're a bit conflicted with that at the moment, changing from 70% rural to 70% urban now. But when it comes to hospo and recreation, we are driving people out of our community. So our built community is very much linked to this. So yes, and as for the money, the history is riddled with brand rebranding failures. I mean, there was two massive companies in the early 80s. You'll recognise both of them. One's called Coca-Cola, one's called Starbucks. Coca-Cola decided that they were going to rebrand themselves as New Coke. Starbucks couldn't find any funding because someone said people would never pay $8 for a cup of coffee. We look at it now. And they both spent more than the GDP of New Zealand on their marketing campaigns. So when it comes to this sort of marketing, it comes with deep pockets. So let's not kid ourselves. If we start going down this path, we need to find lots and lots of cash. I'm going to throw this over to Megan and then back to you, Megan.
Look, I think there was a really interesting comment that you made there, Phil, and I wasn't going to comment on the brand itself, but yeah, that's interesting to go, right, if we're going to make this Selwyn from the land and everything's going to be marketed Selwyn from the land, and I'm not a branding expert, and if that's what all the data says, then cool, that's what the data says. But if we're 70% urban and we're going to have more and more urban growth, like, is this going to be the brand of next year and the year after and the year after? But that wasn't my question. I was just following up on yours.
You can ask your question now.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that Selwyn from the land will be considered as part of this project. We're not making any kind of decisions or putting any decisions in front of you. It's just the fact that this brand will need to be considered. I'm not sure if you want to speak to
And
that,
potentially
Natalie,
like folded in. It's not, it's up to, I think, the partner to advise on how we consider that. And it could be something that may stay, it may be amplified more, but just how do we straddle in more economic development narratives into that?
Yeah. My question was around the work, what I think I see as what are we calling this? It's not branding, it's called Identity Project.
Identity Project.
Okay,
thank you.
right. So Identity Project work stream is on page 49, and we're in the discovery, we're moving into the branding, design, asset creation, activation, and then doing tracking, and that's and then it says, and 2 to 3 campaigns in the next 12 to 18 months. So is all of that work considered then part of year one, which had 160 to 170k budget connected?
Yep. So the budget allocation is really this big chunk of work that you see on that slide. The campaigns beyond that have also been budgeted for and will be budgeted for in years 2, 3 and beyond. You'll see in the strategy there are quite specific actions around delivering a talent campaign and delivering an investment prospectus. So those are actions that we're committed to in the strategy. As I mentioned before, a lot of these projects that we roll out will have a marketing and communications aspect and will continue to drive this identity. They will all be budgeted for, and they will have marketing and communications lines against them.
Right. So stage one is with the 160, 170 is to get us through to the activation stage. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Denise.
My response was really just thinking about, Megan, your point earlier, and one, absolutely, we can be more consistent and make sure that presentations line up with how we are referencing specific projects so that there's common language. So we can definitely do that, but I thought it might also be useful that any future reports, and we're proposing to report quarterly, that we have a one-pager that has the work program outlined and highlights the different bits so that there's always a core reference point to any of the different presentations or information that you're getting if it has been confusing to you around this?
Well, normally we'd just have a paper that says impact on stakeholders or engagement from RD and budget impacts, and usually it says that stuff, but this one just didn't, so I had to go back and just figure it out, which, yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely note that. Thanks, Megan.
Okay, are there any more questions on the presentation?
I just want to make a comment
sorry,
on what
Nicole.
Megan has said. There's actually something I've picked up with a number of papers that are coming to us, that there's different things at the end of the paper that are looked at, and there seems to be different templates for these papers that come to us, which means that we're getting to some of these things aren't covered, or whether people are taking headings out and such like. So that's just a general comment that I want to make, I mean, not to you guys, but to staff, about what's happening with these reports. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. Perhaps it's something we can pass up to the governance group and just clarify that. That's a good point. Yeah.
It just needs to go to staff to make sure that there is a standard template and that is used every time, the same thing.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. It was great to hear. So we got the I'm going to go backwards now to the recommendations, which was just to clarify. We are accepting this report, and we're noting the work plan. Just to clarify, we're accepting that we're going to get quarterly reports on our work plan, on our work program rather. And later on in the meeting, as an item of general business at the end, we'll allow another conversation about the frequency of the meetings overall. So what we're voting on now, or going to be working on now, is just the frequency of the feedback.
Yeah, I guess just in terms of the recommendation that the subcommittee approves that the economic development work program updates will occur on the following meeting dates. So that's not controlling how often you meet, it's just advising you when you can accept, advising you and seeking your approval that you will receive these reports. And it might be, based on some of the comments that you made earlier, Megan, that you want to support it subject to an agreed process for how you deal with things that come up in between meetings or something like that. So.
Okay, so can someone move the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I just want to check. So we're not. This isn't saying these are when the meetings will happen. This is really just saying the reporting will happen, because it is confusing. And
that's right, and I apologise for that. So the updates will take place on these meeting dates.
Yep.
So you don't expect to receive an economic development update every time you may choose to meet.
Thank you for the clarity. Happy to support it on that basis.
And move Sam, seconded by the seconder. Thank you, Grant. All those in favour, say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on our. Thank you very much for the presentation and your report, Denise. Yep. I'm just going to get back to that. We're now going to move into resolution to exclude public. Can someone please move that?